Hello, Deborah. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Of course. Hi, Helen. It's nice to see you again.
So we have got at Counterweight 16% of the people who come to us are coming because of gender related issues. So sometimes they're people who are gender critical feminists, or they have religious beliefs and they're being asked to affirm ideas about gender and sex that they don't hold. Other times it's parents who are worried that their children are being taught um, ideas about gender which aren't the same as they are at home, or that they don't think is age appropriate. Now, your book, The End of Gender, I absolutely loved, because I just think it took such a compassionate approach both to the experiences of people with gender dysphoria, and also to the rights of scientists to actually study this for the benefit of both science and for people with gender dysphoria. How does it manifest in your work, this kind of pressure to adhere to certain ideas and not to others?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for your kind words about my book and also for coming and speaking to me on the Dr. Debra Soh podcast. I loved our conversation. I would say the way that these issues are affecting people, I mean, it really doesn't matter what area of work you're in. It's everywhere. This ideology is everywhere. As a former academic, I can definitely say it's been a huge problem. Even before I left academia, it was my reason for leaving, as I discussed in the book. Um, Genuine scientific understanding or facts about gender identity, human sexuality, sexual orientation are frowned upon. And I think this is because people who have no understanding of the science have been given a platform to spread their nonsense or their ideology. And they're also been given legitimacy. And in some cases, this is by the institutions like universities, medical and scientific organizations. We see this in law now in terms of policy. It's in education. So I would say it's also that these people who are being given the legitimacy are also being given the power to call people who disagree with them all kinds of awful names. In many cases, they defame them. And people who speak up against this have to worry about losing their jobs and have to worry about retribution, being publicly smeared, having their loved ones attacked, all of that. So as a result, it's led to this discourse that is very lopsided because most sane people don't want to be dealing with all of that backlash. And, in my book, I talk about cancel culture and how that's become a huge problem in academia. So it's all these things together. And I think it's also that no one thought this was going to really happen, and no one thought it was going to be this bad. I mean, I think you probably had your finger on the pulse. You maybe had a sense. Even when I left academia, I thought this was just going to be a blip, and at some point we would return to some sense of normalcy, but it just continues to get worse.
That's what we're finding, certainly. The majority of people that are getting in touch with us are talking about issues of anti-racism, but there's a really sizable majority who just have some quite mainstream ideas about sex and gender, and they don't want to be forced to affirm any others. So, I mean, as well as the difficulty faced by scientists in your field, sexologists and other areas, just average people just trying to go about their work in any kind of realm without having to state a pronoun or affirm any belief about gender is it's affecting them. But I think as well, and you address this in the book, it's affecting attitudes towards trans people and people who are gender non-conforming, because there's a sort of growing hostility towards trans people, which I think is quite unfair, because of the authoritarian actions of some kinds of trans activists. So we've had, most people who come to us are very, very liberal, reasonable, but a couple of people have come to us saying, we have, I have a trans woman in my office, how do I deal with this? And I have to say, the existence of a trans person in your office isn't a sign of authoritarian social justice activism. Do you think we can find the balance where we can be supportive of people who are gender non-conforming, who who identify as trans, or without having to take on and affirm an ideology? Can we find that balance?
Well, that's the thing, and that's really unfortunate side effect of this activism, is that this activism, and I really want to emphasize, it does not represent the everyday trans person. I have so many trans people who reach out to me, and it's been a relief because they will say to me, thank you for what you say, because the things that the activists are asking for are not things that we would ever ask for, especially the level of animosity and hostility that you see coming from some trans activists. I think really paints the community in an unfortunate light. And ultimately, it is everyday trans people who are going to have to, unfortunately, suffer as a result of this really aggressive activism, because most people don't know. They think that all trans people think this way, and they definitely don't. And I would also say, for anyone who wants to understand these issues, it doesn't make you a hateful person. It doesn't make you bigoted to question any of this, because that's the other thing. I think a lot of people feel a sense of relief in knowing that it's okay to question it. And there's a reason why you're questioning it, because most of these ideas are not based in facts or reality. So yeah, don't feel bad. Don't be shamed into being quiet about it.
Is that the advice you'd give if I ask you, that's the people who come to us saying they feel isolated, they feel silenced, they feel intimidated? Is that the advice that you would give them?
I would, and I would also say, don't be afraid of what other people think of you more broadly. It matters more that you know what you believe and how you feel about it, and then you can make the decision in terms of how much you want to speak about it, and I guess how much you'd be allowed to say in the workplace in terms of the retribution you will face. I would also say, especially for parents with regard to education, I mean, you were great talking about this on the podcast episode that we did together. Parents, I would say, let your kids know from a very young age that what they're being taught in school about gender identity or human sexuality is probably not based in truth, and that they should be able to come to you and ask questions. And then also for parents, just don't worry about what other parents are doing or what administration tells you. In my book, I have all the scientific research laid out, so you can use that as a resource to show them why the quote unquote new science does not back what they're saying. And I would also say the book is a good resource for adolescent age kids and older. But the biggest thing is just do what's right for you, because that's what's going to help you sleep at night and make you feel better about all this.
Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, I certainly do endorse and recommend everybody to read The End of Gender. And thank you for coming on. It's lovely to see you again.
Thank you so much, and happy anniversary.
Thank you.